Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast featuring Phil Perry. Free agency just around the corner. It's time we start to delve into that. But before we do, let's take a look at DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins, why would we do that, Phil? Because yesterday, Greg Bedard kind of broached the opportunity of what the ask would be from the Arizona Cardinals for DeAndre Hopkins, who is constantly in trade talks. Here you go.
You know, it's leaked out that the Cardinals have the parameters of the deal. And from what I understand, it means that they have multiple offers, and so they know what the ballpark is. And the talk is like a second round pick and then like a conditional pick. That's a Patriots deal. That's the type of Patriots deal that they do all the time.
So DeAndre Hopkins remains an elite receiver when he's on the field. He's 31 years old. He's got massive cap hits if he stays in Arizona. He does have manageable salaries, however. Cardinals, without Kyler Murray this year because of injury, are going to look to move on from DeAndre Hopkins quite likely. The Patriots could be a landing spot. Does DeAndre float your particular boat, Phil?
Here's what's fascinating about this conversation. I think it really depends on how much pressure you think is on the organization at large to really show significant improvement in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Because he would improve your team in 2023. I don't think there's any question. And if you feel like you've got to get to the playoffs and you've got to make a little bit of noise, long-term soundness of your overall football operation be damned, then yeah, go get him. Second round pick, fine. He's going to do more for you in 2023 than probably any second round pick in this year's draft would. And the money, I think it sounds like, Tom, he's amenable to working on. He has a base salary of about $19 million. For next year, that would come with him in a trade unless he's willing to work on that. So I'm good with that. To me, he's not going to be a long-term solution, and you would miss out on a potentially good long-term player in the second round by trading away that pick. I just think there's pressure. I think Robert Kraft wants to win right now. And I think if you want to do that, you got to get somebody like DeAndre Hopkins.
Let's look at the numbers. He's got a $20 million salary, as Phil referenced, this year. He's got a $15 million salary next year. He has said that he would be amenable to tweaking the contract. If you're bristling at that number, consider this. 14 wide receivers in the National Football League make $20 million or more in average per year over their contract. The fully guaranteed money for a player like DeAndre Hopkins is going to be between 30 and 45. So just a lob a figure out there. 4 and 80 with $40 million fully guaranteed would probably be what has to get you in the door. Now, he is a trade chip, so he doesn't have any control over where the Arizona Cardinals, who are GM'd by former Patriots executive Monty Austinfort. I see you have a digit up. Go ahead. He doesn't have control over where he lands. Go ahead, Phil.
He does have a no trade clause, I believe. I believe he does that. He does have that in his
contract. On to Google. Hold, please. Back to live action. And boy, we have covered something of real interest. This from last month from CBS Sports' Joel Corey, friend of both of our pods. Having a wide receiver with 2023's second biggest hit at the position when Kyler Murray could miss part of the regular season may not make the most sense for a team that's much closer to rebuilding than being a Super Bowl contender, wrote Corey about the Arizona Cardinals. Several teams reportedly inquired about Hopkins' availability before last season's trade deadline. The no-trade clause in Hopkins' contract voided when he was suspended for the first 6 games of 2022 because of violating the performance-enhancing substances policy. That would change the dynamic if true. So we might have to get to old Monty somehow. If anybody knows how to do that, we'll talk about that. And we'll get to the bottom of it.
So that's interesting. So he
Could
might
be
have
a no-trade clause, might not be a no-trade clause.
He might have one.
So let's get to that in a quick second. But 4 and 80 for the Patriots, let's look at it this way. 4 and 80 for him or 4 and 50 for Jacoby Myers?
Good question. Boy. Again,
I might rather go Myers and draft somebody.
Yeah.
You know what you're going to get.
Yeah. I think that's fair. And you know, listen, you bring somebody like DeAndre Hopkins in, Tom, and you make him your highest paid player on the team. Like there are locker room dynamics that go along with that. You know, are you sure you want to give him that sort of status the second he walks into the building? A guy who is, you know, the way he's been described to me, people who know him and been around him, is he's sort of just perennially disgruntled. It's right. Like he's just, there's always something going on with him. And I think you have to put up with that to a degree to bring somebody like that into your locker room. But that would be worth considering. Can I just ask you, you're talking about giving him a long-term contract. Would it not be more palatable to the Patriots to just say, we'll just trade for him? And, you know, we'll keep him on the, you know, what is it?
Oh, yeah.
It's
100%.
It's 33 over the next 2 seasons. And
Perfect.
No guaranteed money. Like you kind of going year to year. Now you are giving up a second round pick. That's a valuable asset. But I'd be okay kind of going year to year with him, even if the number, you know, looks pretty big in the short term.
Okay. Here's where I like to look at the conservative side of things with wide receivers. I think the Patriots offense does have enough players on it that can make them potent enough. I do. I think that Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Jacoby Myers, if you retain him, Tyquan Thornton, add yourself a pace back, and you should have enough players on the team when you take the field to make an opposing defense say, what are we going to do here? They don't have, and again, I keep saying, well, they always did that. Well, they also always had somebody who was off the charts as a mismatch problem, whether it was Gronk, whether it was Edelman, whether it was James White, whether it was Brandon Cooks on occasion, you name it. And I am whistling past the graveyard if I think that they have that right now on their roster. However, I look at DeAndre Hopkins and I see Julio Jones. And as much as I love and respect Phil Perry, Phil actually had a contraption attached to his body where there was a big bass drum attached to his stomach, and there were cymbals that every time he took a step, they clanged over his head, and he had a bugle that he would blow. And that was all created so that the Patriots would look at Phil so he could say, go get Julio Jones. Well, Julio Jones is not what we would say is a player that you need to have right now. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to follow the same track. Phil's on mute. Oh, no, here he is. Go ahead.
You know who I had even more going on for me at when it comes to the one-man band stuff? I don't even really remember being that hot on Julio Jones. I could certainly see myself saying that they should take a chance on him. I'm sure I felt that way. No, the guy last year who you would never say that about now 12 months later is Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson was the guy that I said, make that your priority in the offseason. I remember going out to LA with Adam Hart and shooting an original content piece where we were putting together the perfect offseason script. And the first thing we listed was go get Allen Robinson, explosions. And boy, that guy couldn't have been more disappointing in LA. So you're right. I tend to get my eyes just really trained on these big name receivers, Tom, because in my opinion, and I'm always, I think, you need those guys to be a great team. Like, I love Julian Edelman. Even if Julian Edelman were here in his prime, that's not enough, in my opinion, to be a great offense in 2023. Even if James White was here, those guys, they don't scare you the way other teams have elite receivers who scare you.
And that's why the Patriots went and got Brandon Cooks, traded a first-round pick. Maybe they thought they were going to be able to work something with Malcolm Butler and get it back, but there was a first-round pick traded for him. There was a massive risk taken to bring on Antonio Brown. There was a second-round pick for a year and a half of Mohamed Sanu, all given up. So the Patriots do seem to understand that even if we have those guys, the 10 small ducks, we still need a big duck for this fight. There was conversation.
What are the ducks?
Well, it's like I think they say that on Felger and Maz all the time. Would you rather fight 50 tiny ducks or one giant duck?
Oh, no. Yes. Yeah. Was it Skull Crusher? Have you heard this one? I thought it was, you're right. It's something like that. It's like, would you rather fight one horse or 50 duck-sized horses or something? Yeah, you're right. It is. It's something like that.
No, that's a Maz thing. Where do you want horses or ponies?
Oh, maybe I'm mixing.
You're mixing up your farmyard metaphors.
Be that as it may, there was the opinion has been floated that the Patriots have to make a splash. They got to somehow impress upon their fans that they're serious about 2023 in a way that they hadn't been previously. And I think the best way to show you're serious about it is to win the games. But I think that there's a notion that exists between the draft and free agency that if the Patriots don't go out there walking in like Vince McMahon on that GIF, then they're not really in the market. They've already done it. They signed the guy that they need to do, and his name, ladies and gentlemen, is Bill O'Brien. That's the move they needed to make. Otherwise, just slow play it, get yourself a safety in free agency, a mid-tier guy, and just call it a day. I'm kidding.
Here's the sad thing about the reality of today's NFL.
I signed Joe Cardona.
The reality of today's NFL is that the Vince McMahons of the world are the guys who win it. It's not just to appease the fan base.
The 5-12 Rams are in a fire sale.
That's how you win in today's NFL. But they swung for the fences. They got one. And yeah, now they're a mess. But, you know, the Bengals aren't going to the Super Bowl. I'm sorry. As much as I like Penei Sewell, they went with a receiver. They went with a splashy pick early in the first round. A few years ago, they got Jamar Chase instead of Penei Sewell, who's a great player. But they're not getting to the Super Bowl without Jamar Chase and with Penei Sewell. They're not. It's just the Eagles aren't getting to the Super Bowl last year without A.J. Brown. Big, splashy, sexy move. Yes, it appeases the fan base, but it also is what wins in today's game. And so that's why I really do feel as though they've got to have more dangerous threats on the outside. As much as I agree with you, I like Kendrick Bourne. Tyquan Thornton might be a player. I have no idea, but he might be. Devontae Parker is fine when he's targeted. He's really good in those contested catch situations. He really is. It's not enough. It's not enough.
Not enough, says Phil Perry.
Mm-mm.
And DeAndre Hopkins could constitute being enough. If you're DeAndre Hopkins, do you find the Patriots an attractive location for you to land? If Cincinnati might be interested, not Cincinnati, if Cleveland or Buffalo was interested, you get Josh Allen or Deshaun Watson throwing to you, teams that are playoff contenders, Super Bowl contenders, really, annually over the last 2 seasons. Is DeAndre Hopkins excited to come to New England?
Tom, isn't it funny that those 3 teams you mentioned, this might be the one scenario in which the Patriots are the most attractive destination purely from a destination standpoint? Would you rather be in the Boston area, 15 miles from the seaport or whatever it is, or Cleveland or Buffalo? Like that's where, you get Matt Judon on the horn and he starts selling you on Newberry Street and the restaurants downtown, and it might actually sound pretty good. But when it comes to, offensive attacks and quarterbacks, like I like Mac Jones. Is he as good as either of those guys? Deshaun Watson looked like a mess last year, but I assume he'll get a little bit better based on what he's shown in the past. So yeah, it's a good question. And if he doesn't have a great relationship with Bill O'Brien, I think he is sort of he actually tweeted, I guess, Tom, and then he did the tweet that it was fine between them.
Let me delve into that just a bit.
When DeAndre Hopkins was traded to the Cardinals by Bill O'Brien for basically a song, Michael Irvin was on NFL Network, and he said that he had a conversation with DeAndre Hopkins, and in that conversation, Hopkins related that O'Brien wanted to meet with Hopkins, and in meeting with Hopkins, O'Brien said, "I haven't had to have a meeting like this with a player since Aaron Hernandez," which was a little jarring because you're putting tragic and psychopathic figure in some ways in the same sentence as one of your current players. He went on to say, allegedly via Michael Irvin from DeAndre Hopkins, that O'Brien was concerned about, quote, baby mamas, end quote, being a distraction around the facility. The gist of it was that O'Brien was uncomfortable with Hopkins' lifestyle, according to Michael Irvin. Hopkins tweeted while with the Cardinals, "I respect Bill. I appreciated playing for him. Everything was great." Hopkins has since deleted that tweet, but the fact remains. That's where things were. Bill O'Brien knows DeAndre Hopkins well. He knows how talented he is. He was on an arc to be right up there with Jerry Rice and other players of that ilk in the first 3 or 4 seasons of his career with Houston. That was alongside Bill O'Brien. So we'll see. Wow, that's really conclusive, Tom. We'll see. Okay, let's get on to the free agency preview.
Time will tell.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that. Free agency begins Wednesday at 4:00. There will be a tampering period that begins whenever it begins, early next week. But let's focus on the New England Patriots. What will the Patriots try and delve into this time around? In 2021, we saw them spend like drunken sailors on the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver and tight end. They got themselves a hell of a pass rusher in Matt Judon, who was easily the best free agent signed that year. But I'm targeting, Phil, for the Patriots, 4 positions in need. Correct me if I'm wrong. Offensive tackle, cornerback, safety, wide receiver. Okay? What do you think of those 4 as the primary ones? Am I missing any in your estimation?
I think those are all pretty spot on. Honestly, I would have, I'd have a receiver higher on the list as we just discussed, but I think you could maybe play around with safety just depending on if Devin McCourty comes back. But even if he doesn't come back, Julius Peppers. I continue to call him Julius Peppers. It's been a full year of this. Gosh, Jabril Peppers. If he's going to be a free agent.
Yeah.
We know the Patriots like to load up on those guys, not only for special teams purposes, but just because they tend to get hurt. And so having those guys at those second level, those really tough, but also athletic box safeties is important to Bill. So I think you hit the nail on the head with all 4. I do.
Let me go through some of the top candidates at offensive tackle, which is, to me, the primary one you have to hit. Orlando Brown, Kansas City. He's a Pro Bowl / All-Pro level player. Mike McGlinchey, San Francisco, borderline Pro Bowl player. Juwan Taylor, very steady with the Jaguars. He's looking for his second contract. And finally, Caleb McGarry from Atlanta. So you have 4 different level players there, all of whom would be better than Isaiah Wynn, who's a free agent and somehow is so detached from reality that he's actually making Twitter demands, which you can Google it. I'm not even getting into the Isaiah Wynn demanding on Twitter what he's going to want from his next team. But what's your disposition on those 4 players, Phil?
I think Orlando Brown's going to be a little too expensive. I think the other 3 guys are probably more realistic. Is the perfect fit among the group? I don't think there is, but again, to your point, they'd all be an upgrade over what you have. I think McGlinchey is kind of the most all around of the 3. So he had some issues in pass protection last year. There's no question. And it's my understanding, he's just not quite as powerful as he was earlier in his career in the run game, but he's serviceable in both areas. Whereas Juwan Taylor is, according to Pro Football Focus, maybe the worst run blocking tackle in football. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have Caleb McGarry, who's a great run blocker. But because the offense was a little wonky in Atlanta and he's had some struggles in pass protection, he's probably the worst pass protector of the 3. So to me, McGlinchey makes sense as kind of the more complete guy, since you're just looking for, you don't need a stud there, in my opinion. You're just looking for somebody who can get you by in all situations.
And you have Yadik Just, who's a free agent. I'm sure there's not going to be a massive onslaught of interest in Yod the Bod. Connor McDermott has already been re-signed. So you have at least a body to throw out there in old Connor. And he wasn't a complete disgrace at the end of the year, despite Phil's eye rolling every time I mentioned Connor McDermott.
That's strong. A complete disgrace is strong. You just, you'd rather him be your 3rd or 4th guy, not your 2nd.
Okay. Moving on to corner, the Patriots need size at the position. They have players there, whether it's Marcus Jones or Jack Jones or Jonathan Jones, who's a free agent. We'll get into the Patriots free agents in a moment. They have players there who are fast ball hawking, but they're small. All right, we got breaking news. Phil just called a timeout. We're back at it. He has to go because he's going to talk to Calvin Johnson, who's doing a weed hit with 98.5, and Phil's going to talk to him after the weed hit. So, Phil, Patriots need size. Jamel Dean, James Bradbury, they provide it. So does Patrick Peterson, who I really think would be an awesome ad. Great season for Minnesota last year as an aged cornerback. And Cam Sutton from Pittsburgh. Those are your 4 top corners in the eyes, and Jonathan Jones in the eyes of Pro Football Focus. What you do?
I think it just depends on how much you want to spend there. You want to get, if you want to just get a body in, Like I don't hate the idea of Patrick Peterson. I think that's somebody who probably is pretty good for the room. Had a pretty good year last year, as he said, and he's not going to break the bank at this point in his career. Whereas Jamel Dean, now you're talking about a guy who's probably going to command, I don't know, $17 million a year because he's probably the best corner on the market. Darius Slay, it sounds like, is also available via trade. You interested in that guy? 1 year left on his deal for $17 million. So they've got options. I wonder how much they're going to want to spend there. Do they really feel like they need a true number one lockdown guy? Well, then maybe Dean or Slay is the play. If they just need a little bit of size there for a year and then they're on to the next after 2023, then maybe it's Pat Peterson.
All right, we're going to unleash Phil, let him get over to the Sports Hub. It's interesting. Slay, Eagle, wonder if the Patriots and Howie Roseman could still be somebody that the Patriots can get in touch with and make a deal with. One other interesting release today when we're talking about it, looks like Adam Thielen's going to be out in Minnesota. So maybe he and Bill Belichick can have that love-hate relationship face-to-face every day here in New England. Phil, get the hell out of here. And I'm going to get after it on my own and land this friggin' ship. Say hi to Megatron.
Okay, will do.
Real good. All right, ladies and gentlemen. It was nice while it lasted. It's been a choppy week. I'll tell you why. Not choppy, but I've had a lot on my plate, and Phil obviously does too. Yesterday, the reason you didn't see this pod yesterday is there is a project going on based on Jeff Benedict's book, Dynasty. Apple TV is producing a kind of Last Dance docuseries on Dynasty. It's going to come out next year, and it's going to be a multi-part, multi-hour, in-depth, beyond in-depth plumbing of the Patriots dynasty over the 20 years. So you're going to, I don't want to give up the ghost here, but just keep your eyes open because they're going to have everybody you could possibly want to hear from on camera for this documentary. I was there yesterday for 2 hours. I was there the week before for 2 hours. So I'm flattered and happy that they wanted to hear from me. Boy, are they heavy on the Flakegate for me. That was my bailiwick. But that's why we're getting to this today. So reconvening the free agency conversation. To me, quarterback, you can't do it all at all of these positions. You have to make some decisions. Is it going to be offensive tackle? Is it going to be corner? Okay, you can go top of the market at one or the other, but probably difficult to do both. They were able to do that in 2021 when they went at tight end and they went top of the market with Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, perceived to be the two best tight ends out there. They also went pretty close to top of the market with Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. Yeah, those were, Aguilar specifically was quite possibly the best wide receiver hitting free agency. So some years it's a fat crop, some years it isn't, which brings us to wide receiver right now. And the consensus best available free agent as of right now, Jacoby Myers. Now, Adam Thielen might change that geometry if he is indeed released, as is expected by the Minnesota Vikings. But Jacoby Myers, Juju Smith-Schuster, OBJ, who is having a workout on Friday in Arizona, the Patriots are reportedly going to attend. Alan Lazard, the big wideout from Green Bay, and Paris Campbell, former second-round pick of the Indianapolis Colts, who has been a disappointment, but came on a little bit in 2022. Those are five of the prime wide receivers who are going to hit the market. To me, what's the Patriots need? As Phil has pointed out many times, it's a long, tall, field-stretching wide receiver, not a Devontae Parker contested catch guy who doesn't get separation, but somebody who can run the 4.4, who's long and angular, a Julio Jones, a DeAndre Hopkins type. Those types being when they were still good players as opposed to guys plus 30. To me, I would pass on Juju Smith-Schuster. I would really work to sign and re-sign Jacoby Myers. He's going to have to find out what the market shows for him and then maybe come back. He owes that to himself. But to me, Jacoby Myers and either a draft pick at the position or a Paris Campbell type. I like Paris Campbell. I liked him in the draft. Fast as hell. Okay. You can get that guy for just a couple of bucks, is my guess, in second wave free agency, once he realizes ain't nothing out here for old Paris. Which brings us now to the Patriots' own free agents, of which Jacoby Myers is one. And the Patriots don't have a massive number of guys who are back-breaking losses if they go elsewhere. Nobody is going to be a J.C. Jackson type. He wasn't a back-breaking loss, but he was the best corner on the market as far as many teams were concerned. And he signed a huge contract with the Chargers, which unfortunately, because you always root for a guy, he wasn't able to live up to because he didn't perform well. And then he had a severe injury to his leg during the season after 5 games. But that was old. That's old news. We're into this year. Patriots' own free agents will start with Jacoby Myers, the number 1 free agent on the board by consensus right now. The franchise tag number for wide receivers is $18 million. I don't think he's an $18 million player. I do think he's a $12 to $14 million player, however, and we'll see if the Patriots will go that high. Next up, Jonathan Jones. Earlier this week was amusingly tweeted by Ian Rappaport that the Patriots will not be franchising Jonathan Jones. No shit, Rapp. It's $20 million to franchise somebody. I don't know if Jonathan Jones has made over 4 or 5 in his entire career with the Patriots in one season. Good player. Had an outstanding beginning to his 2022 when he was, for the first time, moved to the outside, one of the fastest players in the league. Struggled a little bit down the stretch. He's not tall. He's not big. Patriots could probably augment their secondary group with a big guy. Jalen Mills is opposite right now. I mentioned every other corner except for Jalen Mills. He slipped my mind because he missed significant time at the end of the year. So Jalen Mills is still in the cornerback room. Next up, Jabril Peppers. Phil referenced him. I think it's important that the Patriots re-sign him. He played a significant number of snaps. I think it was about 60% of the snaps at safety last year. If Devin McCourty is going elsewhere, i.e. retirement, then the Patriots need to have Adrian Phillips and Kyle Duggar joined by somebody who can play in the box, which is Jabril Peppers' absolute specialty, to be a box safety, and he did that very well last year. Brought great physicality and attitude. So I'm saying if you can re-sign all 3 of those guys, certainly Jones and Peppers being the prime ones, you're in a good spot. If Myers goes elsewhere, you've lost the security blanket for Mac Jones, and you have to go find somebody he's that comfortable with. And I don't know if there is anybody out there. Jacoby Myers is a smart friggin' receiver. So all his limitations in terms of separation and ability to run after the catch are mitigated by his ability to get open, to catch the ball simply when it is thrown to him, and to have confidence from his quarterback to him. Next up, sneaky Carl Davis. Only played about 20% of the snaps, but he is the widest of wide bodies on the Patriots roster right now. We'll see if they bring him back at a veteran minimum type contract. That's a defensive tackle. Damian Harris, running back, guy who had 15 touchdowns in 2021, certainly has been rendered a little bit obsolete by the presence of Ramondre Stevenson. And of course, Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong were both drafted last year. To me, that is acknowledgement that the Patriots understood that Damian Harris might be leaving the team after 2022 when he reaches free agency. So we'll watch what happens with Damian Harris, who's been a productive player for the Patriots, certainly has had some big runs for them, has been a locker room presence for them. So we'll see what happens with Damian Harris, but more likely than not, I would think that somebody is going to seek him, but you never know with running backs these days, do you? McCourty, we'll find out soon if he's retiring or not. Been in touch with him. He's keeping it under his hat. Nelson Aguilar, yeah, I can't imagine he's coming back here. Just not productive. It was not rewarding for either side, having Nelson Aguilar in New England for 2 years. Raekwon McMillan. Patriots acquired him a couple years back. He was a second-round pick of the Miami Dolphins. He is a speed/coverage linebacker. Didn't have a great year in his first year with the Patriots last year. Say year more, you can't. But we'll see how Raekwon McMillan does on the free agent market. I liked him. I spent time talking to him frequently in the locker room for what that's worth. I liked the way he presented himself. I liked his professionalism. And I think he's a good locker room guy and a player who certainly fits the build and the suit if you want a coverage linebacker, which the Patriots are still trying to really seek out and find. Cam McGrone was a guy I thought would be, he's not here anymore. He's an Indianapolis Colt, so he's not going to make the Patriots Hall of Fame, as I said in what do we call those when we do those rash predictions or whatever they are? They make us do those every once in a while. Anyway, Yodnik Kajust is the last guy. Go ahead, resign Yod, the bod. Bring him back in. You need tackle depth. Isaiah Wynn's a free agent too, but I'm not even going to get into Isaiah Wynn because ain't no way he's coming back here. So yeah, that's where we are in free agency. Keep your eyes peeled. I'm sure we're going to talk more about it on Tuesday as free agency approaches. And we start to get a little bit better of an indication with our reporting where the Patriots might lean, who they might lean to. And as you see with Thielen and as you see with DeAndre Hopkins, we're going to see more names emerge over the next few days as players who are released if they don't come to accord with their teams as to what they are going to take in 2023 when teams say, we gotta cut your number, buddy. It's too fat. Nope. All right, you're cut. So keep your eyes out for that. We will see you on Tuesday. Also, keep in mind that Phil Perry, he had a special guest on the next Pats pod. It was Rob Gronkowski, former Patriot, former Buccaneer, longtime Patriots icon at the tight end position. Enjoy that. Look up the next Pats podcast. We'll tweet it out. Go to Twitter. A lot of you guys follow us on Twitter. So have a great weekend. Enjoy. Might get all the way up to 47 degrees.